again speaks to, and then the population must be made fully aware of this, that we have to be careful when it comes to, under this new act, the pollution of water. We spoke about using of spray, disposal of garbage, and all of these things, Mr. Speaker. We have to understand that we must manage our water resource. We must ensure that our water resource is protected for the present and future generations of Grenadians, and therefore it is important that none of these there is no deposits of organic or inorganic waste into our waterways, drainage or soil that is close enough to that. Mr. Speaker, that being said, there are many situations where there are certain disposal systems that is close enough to waterways that can create this kind of problems. And so I think we've had some of these from the Ministry of Health point of view that we're dealing with even at this point in time. And so it is important that we are very cognizant of that, of this legislation, so that we can take remedial actions. Clause 24, Mr. Speaker, empowers the Commission to declare a water-related emergency, acting on the advice of the unit if the Commission is satisfied that the flow of water or the level of water in any water storage works in any area has fallen or is likely to fall below the level specified in the abstraction license. And again, the monitoring of these of the resources, ensuring that there is sufficient for the population, and taking action where necessary to prevent any unnecessary shortage. Again, the planning, long-term planning and management of the resource becomes very, very important. The Commission, Mr. Speaker, shall by order publish in the Government Gazette and one newspaper or weekly circulation within the state of Grenada and by any other media declare a water-related emergency and direct the unit to take any action specified, which includes 1, the prohibition or limiting the use of water for any purpose specified in the order, and 2, the prohibiting or limiting the taken by any person of water from a source specified in the order if the Commission is satisfied that the taking of water from that particular source depletes or otherwise affects the supplies available to the public. So, Mr. Speaker, again, this is possible because of the close monitoring and management of the water through the unit. Clause 26, Mr. Speaker, important. A person is prohibited from abstracting and using water or constructing or altering or causing to be constructed or altered any works for the abstraction and use of water except under and in accordance with a valid abstraction license granted under this Act. So, Mr. Speaker, what this is saying, Mr. Speaker, in Clause 26 is that persons wanting to abstract water must obtain a license. Failure to do so, Mr. Speaker, there is, on summary conviction, a fine of $3,000 and imprisonment not exceeding 2 years.
Honourable Member, I have to leave the chamber for a very brief moment.
Honourable Leader of Government Business, you may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I think my time is Yeah, so I had to try to see if I can speed up. But I believe this is important, Madam Speaker, that I just want to speak a little more about on the licensing, because I believe it's important. Those who are engaged in abstraction of water. So clause 28, Mr. Speaker, persons interested in doing abstraction must apply and obtain a license through the unit, from the unit through the minister. Clause 29 sets out the matter. The unit considers in recommending to the minister within 28 days of the application whether to grant or refuse to grant an abstraction license. The minister must notify the applicant within a period of 14 days. Person aggrieved, Mr. Speaker, can also file a formal complaint which goes to the appeals committee. Clause 35 provides, I'm skipping, Madam Speaker, so I'm going to try to wrap up as quickly as possible. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, I ask for a few more minutes just to try to see if I can wrap up. I just wanted to...
Honourable Member, we will allow you 5 minutes.
Thank you.
To wrap up.
All right. So clause 35 provides for the unit to carry out investigations where there are allegations of breaches of an abstraction license. And clause 37 provides, empowers the minister on the advice of the unit to review the terms and conditions of an abstraction license if it's in the public interest to do so. Revocation of an abstraction license. This will occur if an abstraction license has ceased to comply, licensee, has ceased to comply with the provisions of the Act or in breach. The application for the abstraction license contains false or misleading information, or if the abstraction license has failed to remedy the breach which gave rise to the suspension of the abstraction license. So, Madam Speaker, I'll just sort of stop here to say that this particular bill really seeks to underscore the importance of management of these resources, the liquid resources or water resources. This is, Madam Speaker, the general population over a number of years have been clamoring for water during the dry seasons. And we recognize, Madam Speaker, that during the rainy season, there is a lot of water wasting. Average household in Grenada do not have proper storage facility. And in particular, we do not do things like rainwater harvesting. But on a sister island of CARICOM, Petit Martinique, for example, rainwater harvesting is commonplace. So I think all of this act and setting up the unit and creating a master plan around the management of water in Grenada will ensure that we consider all of these very important components. The rainwater harvesting, reduction of contamination and spraying close to waterways, and really guarding and cherishing the very valuable water. And maybe, Madam Speaker, as a nation, we really have to consider even building bigger dams. Because look at what happens when it rains heavily. I think we have to invest more into bigger dams, into ensuring that when we have heavy rains, that we can actually harvest the water as opposed to seeing floodings happening so prevalent. And so, Madam Speaker, I just want to thank you so much, and I now commend the bill to the House for debate. Thank you.
Honourable Member from St. David's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't get the chance to debate often when you're in the chair, so I rush to take the opportunity before anyone else. Madam Speaker, this bill is actually a very pivotal bill that seeks to fundamentally alter the water landscape in Grenada. The legislation is seeking to establish first a government department known as the Water Resource Management Unit that is responsible for the management and the regulation of water resources in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. In order to do so, obviously, Madam Speaker, this bill has to give effect to that stated policy, which is to separate the management and regulation of water from the management and provision of water supply and sewage services. So as we currently stand, the National Water and Sewage Authority, in a sense, is the sole legal entity tasked with addressing both the provision of water supply and sewage services, as well as the management of water supply and sewage services, and the regulation of water resources. So the current landscape is such that one entity does everything. And that entity also, subject to perhaps approval by the minister, also is responsible for setting the tariffs and the rates that people are charged for water supply. Therefore, although not yet introduced to the House, the NAWASA Act itself and the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission Act itself is also being addressed as part of the suite of legislation in order to give effect to the stated policy of separating the management and regulation of the state's water resources from the actual provision and supply of water and sewage services. So the bill is seeking... Sorry.
Honourable Member, the substantive speaker is in the House.
Please proceed, Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Short-lived is my bliss. Yes. Welcome back, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was pointing out I don't often get the opportunity to address the House with Madam Speaker in the chair, but you robbed me of a long opportunity to do so. Mr. Speaker, I was at the point of saying that the bill seeks to establish, as indicated by the Leader of Government Business, an institutional framework for sustainable water resource management. It is creating the unit. It is separating water supply and sewage services to enhance conservation and equitable treatment of stakeholders. And it focuses on 6 main thematic areas. 1, the governance over water resources. 2, development of a master plan for the entire country. 3, managing water quantity and quality. 4, regulating water abstraction, including the granting of permits for water use and waste discharge, importantly. And finally, a regulatory framework for appeals and addressing grievances. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to give some background here on how long the state of Grenada and, in a sense, the international community has been at addressing the issue here of water resource management. And I want to start off right away by saying, given the relative newness still of this administration, that all of what I've said would have taken place either under an NDC or an NNP administration of yesteryear. Mr. Speaker, going back as far as 1992, under Agenda 21 of the United Nations Convention on Environment and Development, and then the World Summit on Sustainable Development, which was held in Johannesburg in 2002, and a resulting plan of implementation that was then endorsed by member states, particularly Article 22 of that plan, called for all countries to develop integrated water resources management and water efficiency plans by 2005, with specific emphasis on support to developing countries. And this was part of the drive to achieve back then the Millennium Development Goals, which had a target date of 2015. Mr. Speaker, between 2007 and 2008, the then government of Grenada, in keeping with those international commitments, embraced the need to reform the water sector, particularly aimed at ensuring that water resources were conserved, developed, promoted, and protected in a sustainable, cost-effective, and integrated manner. It also proposed then for a more efficient and equitable framework to manage and regulate water resources, to maximize the contribution of the water sector for a sustainable economic, social, and environmental development. So several studies were then commissioned by those governments to address some of the policy challenges that needed to be addressed. Coming out of this, there was an initiative that included the Water Sector Review, which took place in 2007, a framework for water policy implementation in 2007, and the Grenada National Water Policy in 2020. Mr. Speaker, the previous administration entered into a partnership with the Green Climate Fund, the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, the Nuclear Safety and Consumer Protection to implement what is known as the Climate Resilience Water Sector in Grenada, or GCRUISE project. What is the relevance of this project in relation to this legislation? The project, part of the component of the project, Mr. Speaker, allocates 7.3 million EC dollars for funding the setup of the Water Resources Management Unit, as well as to address the very legislation that we are seeking to table and pass in this House, as well as to address a review of water charges, or the tariff as it is perhaps more technically called, that is charged for water supply. And part of that institutional and technical work, which is being funded by GCRUISE, Mr. Speaker, has a deadline of November 2025. And so we need to get moving on this matter. So the unit itself, Mr. Speaker, and the provisions which provide for the appointment of a director by the Public Service Commission and officers under the director, all again appointed by the Public Service Commission, is aimed at making the unit, to some extent, autonomous from the central government, although it does provide for the minister to provide overarching policy guidelines to the unit to ensure that the unit can implement the government's policies in relation to water resource management, conservation, sustainability, environmental prudence. But the unit itself, Mr. Speaker, will be accountable to the Public Service Regulatory Commission. And you'd see that there's a subsequent amendment to the NAWASA Act to also make NAWASA a regulated entity under the Public Service Commission. Because as it stands now, I think we can all publicly acknowledge that when there are complaints about, for example, water quality supplied by NAWASA, that to a large extent there is no grievance process, perhaps short of going to court, that currently exists to adequately treat with issues such as the quality of water supply. There is no effective mechanism in place right now to deal with charges or the tariffs, or whether one objects or doesn't object to what is being charged for the provision of water supply. And so the unit, as well as the Public Service Commission, are meant to be, in a sense, the regulator, in the case of the Commission, on things such as the charges for water, in relation to the unit, the actual management of water resources throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. And there's some fundamental principles, some of which have been highlighted by the leader of government business, but I think it's important for us to emphasize again, Mr. Speaker, and I will seek to do so. The first principle I wish to highlight, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that the Act makes it clear that the water resources in the state of Grenada belongs to the state of Grenada. Let me repeat that. The Act makes it clear that the water resources in the state of Grenada belongs to the state of Grenada. And therefore there is no private right to water ownership in Grenada. The Act is clearly establishing that. And I think one may ask why. I think we could accept just like the air is fundamental to life, so too water is fundamental to life. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the biologists say our bodies are made up of about 70% water. That tells us the significance of the importance of water. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to ensure that if we are going to truly have principles such as equity, access, etc., that this has to be a resource that is owned by the state for and on behalf of the people of Grenada. So that's the first point I wish to emphasize. The legislation also makes it clear that no right can be granted in perpetuity to water. In other words, it restricts the ability of the unit to give to an individual a license, for example, to abstract water forever. There must be some duration to it because for obvious reasons. If you give it forever, it basically means you are essentially arrogating onto that entity absolute ownership of the right to water. So this is clearly stated in the legislation that the state owns the water resources of Grenada. But there are some clear exceptions because I'm sure questions will be asked, and the question was in fact asked by one of our own colleagues. What does that mean, for example, in relation to a farmer who is abstracting water for farming? The legislation makes it clear that if that water is on the farmer's land, then the farmer can continue to abstract the water. The farmer, his family, and his employees can continue to abstract the water on his land. But that abstraction does not include blocking of the water in such a way that others cannot get it. That abstraction does not include, for example, polluting the water, because it would be an offense under the Act to do so. So the Act also provides that when someone has been abstracting water for at least 24 months prior to the coming into effect of this Act, that you have a right to apply within 6 months for a license to continue to abstract the water. Right? The right to abstract doesn't extend to going on to trespassing to the people's property and abstracting. So while it accepts that the water belongs to the state, the legislation saves a number of things. It saves the existing rights of NOASA to continue abstracting and providing and supplying water. It saves the right of individual landowners who have water on the land to continue using the land, using the water without even applying for a license. And in instances where people are abstracting water, not necessarily on their land, but they've been doing so for the last 24 months, they have the right to apply to the unit to seek permission to continue abstracting the water on whatever terms and conditions that the unit may so impose. Mr. Speaker, there are certain what I call green elements of the legislation which is meant to protect water and to protect the environment. And I think it's important for us to, in a sense, highlight some of those. But before I get to this, there are two principles set out in the Act that I want to highlight which I think is of importance from the perspective of the philosophy underpinning the legislation. And they are contained in Section 5 very early in the Act. Section 5B. And it states, water is a basic human need, and as such, domestic use shall enjoy priority of allocation. So when the unit has to make a determination, and when NOAS has to make a determination, if there are competing interests, given that the Act explicitly states that water is a basic human need, prioritizing domestic use of water is the key guiding principle. Equally important, and that's why I come to what I call the green clauses in the bill. 5C of the bill, 5.1c of the bill says, the environment Mr. Speaker, may I beg for 2 minutes to wrap up, Mr. Speaker? I suppose I was under the impression that I had 30 minutes, like the leader of government business. And so was, in a sense, no big
Permission granted, Honorable Prime Minister. Permission granted.
Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Section 5.1c of the bill says, the environment is a water user and shall enjoy second priority of allocation to the human need. I think this is of vital importance, Mr. Speaker, and I want to repeat it. The environment is a water user. And we need to emphasize the importance of water to the environment and to our ecosystem, both on land, rivers, mangroves, and the coastal area. Because oftentimes we starve those areas of water and effectively kill them. And so this is the second principle of water allocation, which I think is critical for us to highlight and which has been enshrined in the law. Mr. Speaker, and so in essence, in an attempt to ensure that the environment is adequately protected, as I said, there are a number of what I call green clauses, which speaks about water quantity and water quality management in Part 3 of the bill. And in the interest of time, obviously, I will not go through it, but almost all of Part 3 seeks to address water quality, water quantity, environmental flow level, and the volume of water resource, including things like making preservations for water reserves, ambient standards, water resource quality and monitoring, and pollution control. It also provides for the declaration of a water management area and the declaration of a waste let me get the right term. Sorry, it includes steps to prevent and control water pollution, pollution of water resources. So we are prioritizing, Mr. Speaker, the ability to manage water in such a way that the environment can be preserved and in such a way as that we criminalize the pollution of water and areas that are declared as water gathering or water catchment areas, including in some instances surrounding areas, because sometimes you also have to protect the surrounding areas. Mr. Speaker, the bill also seeks to address the realities of climate change. And so you would see, because the regulation and management of water has been segregated from the supply of water, as well as the regulation of water, you would see that the power to declare water-related emergencies is now being transferred to the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. And as recent as last year, we had to deal with the need to pass an SRO to treat with regulating water supply and the use of water in light of the severe drought conditions that we experienced. I want to point out, Mr. Speaker, with the importance of the unit and the director ultimately developing the National Water Management Plan. Because in the absence of a plan, you don't know if you're coming, you don't know if you're going. And it will be absolutely critical for that plan to be developed. The G-Cruise resources, in addition to establishing the unit, hopefully can assist us in some measure in proceeding with this. And I think the leader of government business made reference to our practices on issues such as rainwater harvesting. And we need to go further than that in terms of new construction, whether we mandate that if you're building that you must in turn have a cistern or water tanks. These are things that our ancestors in Carriacou and Petit Martinique truly understood. And I think the fancy word these days is intangible cultural heritage. And I think the practice of rainwater harvesting has in a sense been preserved and perhaps turned into a unique expertise in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. And I certainly think on mainland Grenada we can benefit from that. But we need to institutionalize and in a sense legislate that to make sure that our behavior conforms to that. So all in all, Mr. Speaker, sorry it's only 15 minutes, but this is in fact a fundamentally important bill. Clearly a number of governments have worked on getting us to where we are today, and so I would wish to commend the bill, and I hope all in the House will support it. Thank you.
I now invite the MP for the town of St. George to take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill is critical. In fact, I remember reading an article or book some time ago which said that future wars, in fact, I'm not sure if they suggested future world war, but future wars will be fought about water and access to water. In fact, in the Middle East, a whole lot of the geography of the Middle East has been shifting a bit on the issue of access to water. So I think this bill, as the Prime Minister indicated, has been in the making. And I also want to commend all of the governments, all of the personnel, all of the staff over the years who have been pushing in this direction. In fact, I just got a note from a good friend who indicated that this matter has been there for some time. So I look forward to it coming into force. I think a couple of things need to be addressed though. One is our attitude to water. A bill does not change our attitude. The bill just changes the functioning of the. We need to understand as a people the importance of water and the fact that without water, the entire world will change. And without clean water, in fact, clean water, drinkable water is seen as a fundamental right, in my view. Not in my view, as a fundamental right, and we must preserve that right. Now, you know, we treat water in a sense like the point I made earlier, like transport. We take it for granted. We treat water like the sun. It will be there regardless of what happens. That is not true. We can find ourselves in a position where water, and that's why I want to commend the people at Nawassa. I mean, there's all kinds of complaints again about Nawassa, water God. I mean, I know it's more technical than we believe, but we just take it for granted. We turn on the pipe, there must be clean water. But I know it's not as easy, and so I want to pay tribute to the staff at Nawassa who do their best in the circumstances. So education about this bill and about water must be part of this. Education of our people in the schools about the risks we have if water is not preserved the way this is expected to do. This bill wants to preserve our access to water, and I give support to that. But I also want to talk about the issue of consultation that was raised. I know there are several I mean, the word is overused sometimes. I want to say there are people, the people who are concerned, the farmers. I think the Prime Minister mentioned farmers without water. You know, our agricultural sector would be seriously affected. Also, bottled water has become now a big business. I have issues with it, but it is big business the way it is at the moment. They are stakeholders. You must consult with the bottled water suppliers because people depend on it. In fact, I think we need to ensure that they are on board with it so that they can continue the business because there's high demand for that. In addition to those who give it recreational use. Our rivers, I mean, we have rivers and people use the rivers. The tourists come and use the rivers. we must have regulations, and I'm sure it's here, to ensure that the water is not polluted. But therefore, our what you call them, the tourism operators, the operators who bring them to the sometimes the tourists come and they believe they can do anything with our water. You need to educate them and put the signs up to ensure that our rivers are not polluted. That needs to be addressed. So I think education is critical. What I want to also raise is the issue of price. Now, as I said, we take water for granted, and the price of, will this have any impact? Will this cause a rise in the price, the NAWASA bill, when we get it? Will it be that when we get the bill, after at the end of the year, the bill will increase exponentially? Maybe not. Maybe if it is increased, it is justifiable. I mean, I know one of the biggest issues I've had when I was in government is when NAWASA and other essential services ask for an increase in price. Water is one of those things that people respond very, very negatively to any request. So I think we must be made, we must know if this, which we support, which I support, will cause an increase in the price of water. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that I think the bill is a good bill. I think also, will it have any impact on the workers in the authority? Will it have any impact on them? And I guess the unions are also a stakeholder that needs to be brought on board. So while the bill is a good bill, I think all of the stakeholders should be brought on board, but not just the stakeholders from this perspective, but all of our people must come on board, our young people starting in the schools, about the importance of water. Because like I said, water and access to water will become a major international issue in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP for the town of St. George. MP for St. Patrick West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to make a very brief intervention. Mr. Speaker, one of the good things about this bill, which I rise to support also, is that it removes from NAWASA the function of being a player as well as the referee. So the concerns raised by the honourable member for the town of St. George are addressed in the sense that NAWASA cannot on its own or arbitrarily decide to increase rates. That must be done through or under the auspices of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission and through the unit. So that is something that has removed that level of arbitrariness. Also, consumers are now given an added level of protection because as it stands currently, if you feel wronged by NAWASA, save taking legal action, which might be expensive and very protracted, you now have the means to appeal to the unit to have your situation redressed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP for St. Patrick West. I now invite the MP for St. Mark to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to the bill as presented. Mr. Speaker, I am in support of the bill in general. I think I know that much work has gone into it to getting us to this point, and I want to commend and compliment all the entities that were involved in getting us here. Noteworthy is the work put in by NAWASA at the time to ensure that the project that was sponsored by various donors, European and otherwise, I don't know all of them. I know the German government was very involved, and the Grenada Climate Fund, the Green Climate Fund as well. But there were many other players, and I know some persons worked very, very, how shall I say, effectively. They spent a lot of hours in ensuring that this document was signed in an appropriate time. And I'm really proud of the work that our environmental department did under our government at the time, and I'm happy to note that the recognition has not gone unnoticed. Mr. Speaker, when this project came into effect and some of the work started in earnest in water conservation, water management, and so on, and the G-Cruise project started, I was then Minister for Tourism. And I also want to compliment the hotel sector, the tourism sector, for the very avid buy-in to the whole concept. And with some support from the project, they were able to implement measures within the hotel sector to conserve and preserve water in their establishments. It is my hope too that the project can extend to individuals so that they can employ measures in their own homes to conserve and preserve water. I know that Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and my friend from Carriacou and Petit Martinique has been urging me to say something. So, I will say on their behalf that, and I think the member from St. David alluded to that as well, that they have done an excellent job in conserving water, in managing it well, and going to Carriacou, I see some of the measures they take in terms of the faucets that they use, the sensor faucets, so that immediately there's no movement, the water stops, and I notice even in our washrooms here, you have 2 different volumes for water, 2 different gadgets that you can press to get the appropriate water. And I don't know what the prices of these things are, but it may be more expensive than the ordinary faucet. So maybe it's one of the things that the government and NAWASA can do to create some incentives for persons so that they are encouraged to employ these means. I come from an area that very rarely has problems for water. We have an abundance of water in St. Mark, Tufton Hall waterfalls, and so on, and we could always send up some to Carriacou when necessary, if my brother on the other side behaves well. However, I know the problem, especially in the south, southern part of the island during the dry season, and the hotel sector is what perhaps suffers most because of the volume of clientele that they would have to take care of and so on. And some have come up with various innovative measures like their own desalination plants, and so I noticed that was used very effectively in Carriacou as well after Hurricane Beryl. But I think we need to get more into these practices so that we can conserve our own water. Mr. Speaker, I just have 2 questions, and let me apologize up front. I tried to read the whole document, but maybe I didn't read it. But I garnered some things, and I just wanted to raise a question or 2. One was mentioned by the member of the town of St. George regarding any financial or cost implications. Because you have new entities, you have new persons, you have a unit, a water management unit, that is appointed by the Public Service Commission, and it's a unit of government. So I presume, without seeing any explanation, that there will be some cost on the government's funds. I don't know whether the project or the program will cover that, but there is that. And my question is whether that would affect the cost of water rates or the usage of water, and how that will affect our citizens, especially the indigent. This is a word that is not generally accepted among some quarters, but the reality is that we do have indigent and persons who cannot afford. And I well recall that during our time in office, through social services, there was a program to protect these people, because I said before, water is 70%, 75% of our body. And if we lose and we cannot replenish, then we're in serious trouble. So water, therefore, is life. And I looked at the 47 pages or so of the document. I didn't see any exemption from certain things or any protection for the vulnerable. But something as important as that, there has to be something. And maybe it was silently done in cabinet and we don't need to know about it, but I think the indigent need to know. And the leader of government business did speak about educating our people. These are some of the things that persons would like to know about, whether they're covered if there is more financial implication on the consolidated purses of the country, whether that would affect them negatively. Now, I'm not saying that water should not be charged for. Such an important commodity has a cost, and to manage it and meet all the standards that have been set, there are persons who would have to be employed, etc., etc. And therefore, I am well aware that water has a charge to it. And when you compare the fees we pay for water as compared to other utilities, it's not so bad. But if you have absolutely no money or no income, then you have a situation in which I expect the government and the Ministry of Social Services to take care of that. Mr. Speaker, so that is the first thing, the financial implication. And the second one, because the unit comprising of director and other officials would be appointed by the Public Service Commission, then my other question is, are we reverting back to a public service? NAWASA back to a public service. Are we removing some of the autonomy that it had as a statutory body? How will it work? And, well, the other side have said it, you know, sometimes I may ask Don's questions, but I will still ask it anyways. How will it work? Because the PERC is the one, that the entity that sets the fees. And so the unit has to respond or how shall I say it, relate to what the PERC has determined. And then the unit has to respond, they are accountable to the minister because they are public servants. So are they really a statutory body, or has that position been reversed? This is the question I would like to know an answer for. Maybe it's in the document and I missed it, but I did read the document. So, Mr. Speaker, and then going back to what I was told about something that was done with physical planning, that there was a similar situation, and so that was rectified and changed to make physical planning a more statutory body. So we're taking back from one, we're reverting from one, and we corrected one, and the same thing we corrected, we moved away from it with another entity. So this begs the question. So, Mr. Speaker, I do support this bill. I think it is extremely important. But I just want to ask that the government does ensure that the indigent and the persons needing water who cannot afford it are well protected. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP for St. Mark. All right, I sense enough. Okay, Honorable MP for St. Andrew Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise and I want to join with my colleagues, those who have recognized and commended all of those who have been part of the preparation to take us to the stage. So particularly, I want to recognize those who have been involved, whether it's from NAWASA's end, the G-Cruise project, all of those, the funding agencies. As was said before, this particular bill that is before us here is really a phase of conclusion of significant work that has been done over many years, and we do recognize this milestone. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support this bill, but want to bring to the attention a few concerns as it relates to this. The first thing, and I think one of my colleagues on this side mentioned it, the issue of consultation, and it seems to be repetitious with every single bill coming to this House. Not just the issue of lack of consultation, but also it appears, and I don't recall any bill, as far as my memory goes back, that has come to this House in any recent time and wasn't taken through all of the stages at the particular sitting. And so some of these bills, in my opinion, requires a first reading to allow for more public engagement and consultation. And I believe it is something that needs to be considered. I'm not sure if it has to do with the agenda of the government, but maybe some more planning can go into this to ensure. I understand there's an urgency with this particular one, but many others I don't understand the urgency. So the issue of consultation, because you see, what happens is we rush these bills, consultation is minimal, and then you have all the debate taking place after the bill goes into law, which is unfortunate and probably defeats the whole purpose of the process of Parliament, right? So we have to take greater advantage of the process that the Parliament provides for first reading, then consultation, engagement, you come back and you debate. So for example, farmers, and I oftentimes, when some of these bills come, would do some measure of outreach. So, as I said, when we come here, we are not sharing our personal views and opinion. You reach out to persons, you ask their opinion, you get their feedback, different stakeholders. How are you affected by these bills that we present? And very interesting was the response of key stakeholders who responded to this particular knowledge of this particular bill. So I am aware that there has been some measure of consultation over the years. But again, and I listened carefully when the presenter of the bill repeatedly said, I'm going through the clause so that the public would understand. Well, the public, many of them are not listening. And in the format presented, they don't understand. As a matter of fact, they might not even care. And so we have to find creative ways. So whether it's through Ministry of Agriculture, for example, bringing the farmers together, meeting them on the farm, explaining certain things to them. When we come to this stage, there should be a level of knowledge that would provide the kind of buy-in that is necessary for these very critical and important bills. Mr. Speaker, the second thing that I want to raise as it relates to this is that of the shifting of the role, the key roles as it relates to this entity from functions from NAWASA into a government department. And as I said before, I'm supportive of this initiative, very supportive of a number of elements within the bill presented today. But I raised the concern, as was raised before, amplified the concern as it relates to the cost implications. And again, it may sound repetitious, but I raise again that all of these bills are coming with absolutely no information to guide our understanding of the financial implication. So, for example, is it that the G-Cruise project, for example, is going to fund the administrative cost for 5 years, for 2 years? How are we going to ensure the sustainability? What would have, you see, these are information that we need to be able to determine whether we support in full, partially, or otherwise. So, for example, would it have been more effective or more efficient to have it done in a different way? And that is why, again, I'm emphasizing that there's some basic information that is required when people have to make certain decisions. And we cannot just treat decision-making so lightly in that regard. And just reading out the clause doesn't help people, or providing a document to make informed decisions. Mr. Speaker, the next point that I want to raise as it relates to that is the issue of independence. And so I want to encourage, with whatever structure, I have my concerns as it relates to the location, the placement, the physical location of this unit. But I want to emphasize that we want to make sure whatever is done, that the transparency, the independence, we protect that because of the important role that this unit has to play. I know that we are probably going to have, I don't know what the numbers are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whether or not the persons with institutional knowledge within NAWASA is going to be moving over. Whatever the process or the arrangement, we want to make sure that all of that is smooth, people are not disadvantaged in any way, and institutional knowledge is smoothly transitioned into this new operation. The other thing I want to mention, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to the cost implication, because there must be an added cost. And a sensible question, you said you don't know if it's sensible, but a very sensible question, Mr. Speaker, is who carried the burden of the cost? So it is not dumb for somebody to start wondering, will that have any implication on a consumer? Will that affect anybody down the road? It's not a dumb question. It is a sensible question, because you want to make sure that in light of all that consumers are experiencing currently, that there's no added burden to them in the process. And as much as that can be consumed through some other means, whether it's through government or through some subsidy, whatever it is, that people are protected in that regard. Particularly, Mr. Speaker, if we speak about regular consumers, we've just had the levy added. We've had a new arrangement as it relates to water connection, for example, as it relates to a deposit. So I'm just saying, Mr. Speaker, logically thinking that one would be concerned that there would be no added cost involved at this time, and there's a phase-out process that would give people some breathing space in that regard. But if you consider aspects, and going back to the subject of consultation, if you consider aspects of this bill, Mr. Speaker, you've heard charges, you've heard jail time, right? Talking serious things. And so ever more reason why an ordinary farmer, or as a matter of fact, some of the farmers that I spoke to, the level that they're at involved in farming, that I'm saying, whether it's a farmer, whether it's a businessman, whoever would be affected in one way or the other, I want to appeal, as I believe one of the presenters, I don't remember who it was, made mention of a serious educational plan to go along with the passage of this bill. And this must be done with urgency. So, for example, we've had serious situations in Grenada. I don't want to hint to any specific example where people almost lost their lives. Almost lost their lives, at least in the cases that I know where they did not die, but people, well, let me not be too specific to bring back any memories. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, and I see you nodded, I'm quite sure it's because you know exactly the example I'm talking about. And so we are bringing management to this. We are bringing control to this. But at the same time, we want to make sure people understand what we're doing. People understand, because we have a history of some persons saying water is free, water is from God. So how do we ensure God water, right? So how do we ensure that as we roll this out, people are coming along with us and nothing is done to create too much of a burden in terms of the changes to be made as we go along? Finally, Mr. Speaker, again, I want to stress and dwell here as it relates to those who possibly can be affected. I appeal that there should be some urgent, immediate steps taken as it relates to consultation, as it relates to engagement. Someone just made one comment this morning, just one comment. As a matter of fact, the announcer, I'm coming down, and somebody sends a message to the announcer on the radio station, and he just made one statement, and you would not believe what that one statement would have triggered. And my conclusion is that we shouldn't be in a situation where a bill like that is coming before the Parliament, and very few persons have knowledge of it. So one statement would have had a ripple effect, and maybe, just maybe, half of what was said thereafter was not true. but people start speculating. They start guessing. And so I'm appealing to those who are leading in this process immediately, the education process. And as I said before, let us assure people that they will not be affected in ways that they might be thinking. And there are implications, there are serious implications, whether it's farmers, whether it's consumers, whoever they are, one way or the other. If we look at the content of this law, we want to make sure they are aware of the details, they are educated, they are protected. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP for St. Andrew Southeast. I now invite the MP for Carriacou and Matnick.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this bill in its entirety. I just want to note, it's important that the Honourable, that this is placed on the record, that this bill was prepared by the other side while they were in office. Not even a comma, if I'm not mistaken, was changed by this side. So when I hear the leader of His Majesty's opposition, the leader of the NNP, my member, speaks about jail time and all of this thing, I'm kind of, confused, because all of this was prepared under their watch, including, Mr. Speaker, the consultations and so on, which took place under their watch. But having said all of that, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that all of the information that we have, the members on the other side also have the information. So as a responsible opposition, in my view, they can also lead with the consultations with farmers and various organizations, including their constituents. So for what it's worth, I was just a little bit baffled, knowing that while they were in office, they're the ones that created the bill. They're the ones that did most of the work, if not all of the work. All this administration is doing is simply bringing it to Parliament. So on that note, I support the bill in its entirety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, MP for Carriacou and Matnick. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to firstly, again, extend my appreciation to this House for contribution to this bill. I have a few observations, Mr. Speaker, I wish to speak to. Now, almost every time this government presents, this NDC government presents a bill to be taken through all the stages, there is a concern by the other side. There are two things to this, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, most of these bills that we are presenting to this Parliament represents work that the other side failed to do whilst they were in office. Work they were paid to do and did not do. Mr. Speaker, and yes, there is an urgency, because we do not want to fall into the trap of poor implementation rates that they suffered from when they were in office. So we must take measures, thank you, to get these bills out, to have them approved by both houses of Parliament. So yes, we are working fast and hard to ensure that these things are done. And this is a hallmark of a government that puts the work for the people ahead of our own personal comfort. That's what we've been doing. But Mr. Speaker, some questions were raised. questions were raised. Like, who pays for the unit? The unit, Mr. Speaker, is a unit within and under the auspices of the minister, within the ministry, and under the auspices of the Minister for Public Utilities. So it's a government ministry. Who pays for it? As any other ministry, that particular unit is financed by the Consolidated Fund. So to answer your question, the question was asked by the member for St. Mark. So, is it still going to be a statutory body? Speaking about NAWASA, is it still going to be a statutory body? Mr. Speaker, this document was submitted to this House. Supposedly, we all read this document. There is absolutely nothing that was presented that indicate that NAWASA is being converted to anything else. It's not changed NAWASA. Mr. Speaker, all that this is attempting to do is to remove the regulatory aspect of the management of the water resources from the hand of NAWASA to that of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. That's what we are doing. So NAWASA, Mr. Speaker, no longer self-regulates, but they are now being regulated by an independent body. That's what we do. So there is no question as to the dissolution of NAWASA and the transfer of assets. That's not happening. That has nothing to do, that's not mentioned in the bill. It is only the regulatory aspect that has been expunged from NAWASA and transferred into a new department within the Ministry of Public Utilities as per the Act. Mr. Speaker, the member for St. Andrew Southeast, one member referred to her as a political leader. We're still trying to determine whether it's political leader, whatever. Or maybe the chairs are empty, so maybe you can occupy one. The question is asked. The statement is made. There must be an added cost, speaking to the bills that consumers pay to NAWASA for the use of water. When, Mr. Speaker, the member for St. Patrick, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order.
On a point of order?
I
Yes.
believe that the member who was just on the floor, member for St. George Southeast, must be attempting to mislead this House. Mr. Speaker, I never said that the cost implication related to consumers. I said there must be an additional cost as it relates to the operation. If you go back to the records, it would be very clear what I said. I ask that consumers should be protected, but I said there must be a cost as it relates to the operation of this new entity. So if we need to check the record, we can do so.
Thank you, Honorable Member. You have government business?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the jury is the people of the state of Grenada. So, the member for St. Patrick's West said that the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission provides oversight. So if there has to be any cost increase or cost implication, they must get permission from PERC if they have to increase any rates. So let us be clear that this bill, and we can flip through the pages of this bill, there is absolutely no indication in this bill or any reference being made to an increase in rates at NAWASA. So I want the public to be made aware of this. We spoke about an education plan. How do we educate people? Mr. Speaker, there is an education plan. This government can boast of more public consultation than any other government in recent history. This government can boast of numerous town hall meetings where the ordinary men and women in this country ask any question to the Prime Minister and any member of Parliament, any member of this NDC government that is so wish to ask. But in the previous administration, Mr. Speaker, when questions were asked, the response was, don't go there. That was the response, Mr. Speaker. You're talking about the education plan. The education plan is the plan that we have been using to go to the rank and file and to every nook and cranny in our society to speak to them about all of these important matters and to field questions from them. So even if this bill is being passed here today, Mr. Speaker, this is not the end of discussion. People are free to ask questions and bills are amended every single year. They can ask questions, make the suggestions and recommendations, you take it on board and you implement. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to, again, simply say thank you for the support on both sides, although the numbers are fading rapidly. The grandfather, the so-called grandfather of the House didn't show up today because, of course, Mr. Speaker, there is trouble in the House, disorder in the House. A lot of disorder. So I understand that one of the grandchildren left the house and all sort of things, but Mr. Speaker, we still have to continue. So I want to thank members for the contribution, and I look forward to every member of this House, Mr. Speaker, voting positively on this bill, because it's one thing to say when you stand on your feet debating that I support the bill, but time for voting, there is absolute silence, abstinence. So I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to the truth today, not hypocrisy, the truth. Very important bill. We must manage our water resources. And I want to see, Mr. Speaker, if we're going to get the support, as said, from all members of this Honorable House on this bill. Mr. Speaker, I know a member spoke about being unshackled. And you heard the result of that. You heard the result. He spoke with all freedom and, was able to speak freely. And so we want to encourage the others to unshackle themselves. Unshackle themselves, because you can see the freedom that we enjoy on this side. Enjoy this freedom. We want to encourage the rest to be unshackled. So I want to thank again, Mr. Speaker, and I now commend the bill for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Water Resources Management and Regulation Bill 2025.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill part by part. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that its Honourable House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill part by part. All those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Honourable members, this House is now in committee.
Part 2, Water Resources Management and Administration.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 3, Water Quantity and Water Quality Management.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 3 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 4, Abstraction of Water.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 4 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 5, Water and Wastewater Control Areas and Permits.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 5 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 6, Appeals.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 6 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Part 1, Preliminary.
Honourable members, the question is that Part 1 preliminary forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the House resumes and that the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Thanks.
Honourable members, the question is that the House resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honourable House now resumes. Honourable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the third reading of the bill.
Too much report.
Sorry. I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. As many of that opinion say aye, of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the third reading of the bill. Thanks.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and pass. Those of the opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Water Resources Management and Regulation Bill 2025.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to introduce for its first reading the bill for an act shortly entitled National Water and Sewage Authority Amendment Bill 2025.
The bill which seeks to amend the National Water Sewage Authority Act, Chapter 208, shortly entitled National Water and Sewage Authority Amendment Bill 2025.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the relevant standing order be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all the stages at this sitting.
Honourable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all stages at this sitting. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as referenced in the previous discussion on the previous bill, this bill, National Water and Sewage Authority Amendment Bill 2025, seeks to incorporate the changes to accommodate the Commission as a regulatory body and the management unit as a management body for NAWASA, and also allow NAWASA to be streamlined to focus on supply services for water and sewage disposal. So, Mr. Speaker, these changes will result in the repeal and replacement of certain sections of the Act to accommodate the PERC and the management unit. Clause 13 in particular, Mr. Speaker, repeals and replaces Section 27A of the Act, which empowers the authority subject to PERC Act to levy and to collect charges and fees. Clause 14 and 15 repeals Section 28 and 30 of the Principal Act, while Clause 16 amends Section 34 to replace the word authority with commission. And so, Mr. Speaker, through the entire bill, we recognize a number of repeals and replacements to accommodate these bodies. Clause 1, Mr. Speaker, speaks to the short title of the bill. And so, Mr. Speaker, there is not much we can say in relation to this because substantially we've covered most of the discussions in the previous amendment. So these changes are only to accommodate the new arrangement, so that, just to reiterate and for us to properly understand, NAWASA is a service provider for water and sewage disposal. The unit within the Ministry of Public Utilities is responsible for the management under the and policy development and plans and so on, and the PERC is responsible for overall oversight and regulations. All right. So basically, that's what it is, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. I take it that it is so clear that there is no other contribution to it. So I now call the vote. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Those with that opinion say aye. Or the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Bill for an act shortly entitled National Water and Sewage Authority Amendment Bill 2025.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill clause by clause. Thank you.
Honourable members, the question is that its Honourable House resolve itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Those with that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honourable House is now in committee.
Clause 2, amendment of Section 2 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Or the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 3, insertion of new Section 2A in Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 3 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Or the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 4, amendment of Section 3 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 4 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Or the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 5, repeal and replacement of Section 6 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 5 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 6, amendment of Section 7 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 6 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Or the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 7, repeal and replacement of Section 11 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 7 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 8, repeal of Section 12 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 8 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 9, repeal of Section 13 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 9 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 10, amendment of Section 17 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 10 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 11, amendment of Section 23 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 11 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 12, amendment of Section 27 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 12 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 13, repeal and replacement of Section 27A of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 13 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 14, repeal of Section 29 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 14 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 15, amendment of Section 30 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 15 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 16, amendment of Section 34 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 16 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Say aye. Those who are opposed say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 17, repeal of Section 36, 37, 38, and 39 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 17 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 18, repeal of Sections 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 18 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 19, amendment of Section 52 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 19 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 20, repeal of Section 54 of the Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 20 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 1, short title and commencement.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 1 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. You have government business?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman. I beg to move that the House resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the House resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This honourable House now resumes. Honourable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Is that government business?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and pass. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
The bill for an act shortly entitled National Water and Sewage Authority Amendment Bill 2025.
Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce for its first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Public Utilities Regulatory Commission Amendment Bill 2025.
The bill which seeks to effect some consequential amendments to the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission Act number 20 of 2016 to empower the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission to have regulatory oversight of the Water Resources Management Unit in managing the state's water resources, shortly entitled Public Utilities Regulatory Commission Amendment Bill 2025.
Leader of government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the relevant standing order be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all the stages at the sitting.
Honourable members, the question is that the relevant standing order of the House be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all stages at this sitting. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Love government business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. We love government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, similar to the previous bill, this bill seeks to make some amendments by replacing some of the words and sections to accommodate PERC as a regulatory body for the National Water and Sewage Authority, and to acknowledge the unit as part of that management structure. And so, Mr. Speaker, There's not much we can add to this, given that we've discussed substantially the changes that are happening, because this is basically a consequential amendment as a result of the previous bill. So I want to commend this bill for debate. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Oh, sorry. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to rise to support the bill for the reasons largely presented on the substantive debate on the first bill that was passed earlier today. But I also wish to point out, Mr. Speaker, that the bill is also seeking to increase the membership of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission from 3 to 5, which is the current numbers, to 5 to 7, obviously because the Commission is now being tasked with additional regulatory responsibility. Currently, it only regulates GRENLEC, and obviously water resources and tariff regulation for water is naturally a little different than for power. And so obviously we need to make sure that we have expertise on the Commission that could address water is also of critical importance. So it's also designed to increase the number of persons who may serve on the Commission, and obviously to explicitly have NOASA now as a regulated entity that would be subject to regulation. And as the question of cost and who's paying for water has been raised, again, this re-emphasizes that it will now mean that NOASA would not be in a position to unilaterally change its rates without going through an application process with the PRC, which in turn would have to go through a consultation process with the public that would then allow for determination to be made. So I support the passage of the bill through the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Bill for an action entitled Public Utilities Regulatory Commission Amendment Bill 2025.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider this bill clause by clause. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that this House resolves itself into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill clause by clause. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honorable House is now in committee.
Clause 2, repeal and replacement of long title of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 2 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 3, amendment of Section 2 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 3 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 4, amendment of Section 4 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 4 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 5, amendment of Section 5 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 5 forms part of the bill. Those who are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 6, amendment of Section 7 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 6 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 7, amendment of Section 10 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 7 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 8, amendment of Section 12 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 8 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 9, amendment of Section 13 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 9 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 10, amendment of Section 14 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 10 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 11, amendment of Section 17 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 11 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 12, repeal and replacement of Section 32 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 12 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 13, amendment of Section 36 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 13 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 14, amendment of Section 37 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 14 forms part of the bill. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Clause 1, short title and commencement.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 1 forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. You love government business.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the House resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the House resumes and that the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. This Honourable House now resumes. Honourable members, I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole House and passed without amendment. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. Those of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and pass. Those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Public Utilities Regulatory Commission Amendment Bill 2025.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House be adjourned sine die. Yes.
Honorable members, the question is that the House be adjourned sine die. Honorable members, the question is that the House be adjourned sine die. Those that opinion say aye. Or the contrary opinion say no. This House is now adjourned sine die.